Hey, how's it going, you guys? It's the Alpha once again. Here I am with another video. So I did ended up coming through with the first video, and I decided to make another one. Why not continue educating, others. Tell others about my experience so far, how it's like, what it's like living with an ileostomy. Like I mentioned before, this is a permanent thing now. So from now on, it's just a matter of me talking about, my experiences, some of the big changes for me, what's going on, and I know I didn't mention this before, but like I said, this is actually my second time getting this ileostomy. I've had it in the past before. It was about, I believe, roughly 2.5 years ago, but this time around, it's a lot more permanent. So with that being said, this is a new chapter of my life. This is something I'm gonna have to stick with, and just kind of learn to live with it. For the most part, it hasn't changed me dramatically. I know that for a fact. It's just right now it is taking a big toll on me temporarily, of course. Um, I did come out of surgery about 2 weeks ago. About 2 days ago, actually, I just got the staples removed and as well as the drainage tube. Um, I don't have any pictures of that, unfortunately, but I will be uploading the photos of what the staples were, or rather, where the incision was, and then also where the drainage was, also as well. They're very close to each other. I'll go ahead and upload a little photo around here. That way, you could go ahead and see exactly what I'm referring to. Don't mind the stomach. It's a bit, it's a bit hairy in the from this side. I am a hairy guy after all. And then you'll probably see that my stomach is a little bit bloated, rather, or it looks bloated. Some people think I'm pregnant for whatever reason. It's not the case. It's just that it's still pretty inflamed. Originally I do have what do you call it? I forgot the top of my head. It's called Crohn's disease, and I'm still, working on getting that inflammation under control. So with that being said, that's probably why my stomach looks very extended. I was told this might take a couple weeks, maybe up to a month or two, for it to go back to its original size. But from now, this is what it's kind of what it's gonna be looking like if I was very extended, maybe bloated, or what others have been telling me, especially my family members, pregnant. But it is, very extended looking. From the camera, it doesn't look like so much, but I will be making more videos in the future, kind of seeing how people, because, for the most part, and it is very unfortunate, but you will have looks, people are going to be staring, they're going to be looking like, what does he look like that? And for that reason, too, I did not look like this. I was actually a lot more chubby. My arms were a lot more thicker. My shoulder was a lot more broad. But because of the surgery, I did lose a good amount of weight. Um, Prior to the surgery, actually, what brought me in originally to the ER was because I had for the longest time, I believe like 4 days prior going to the ER, I wasn't able to eat, and for that reason, my stomach was just it was very bloated. I wasn't able to eat at all. I was still able to drink, my water, juices, soda here and there, but to be honest with you, I really didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to drink anything. Nevertheless, even eat something. I'll probably eat once a day during that period of time, but for the most part, I wouldn't even eat a lot. Probably a handful, and that's if I wanted to. Honestly, I would just kind of force it because I know for a fact I'm a big guy. So I need the food, I need the nutrients, I need all that to get my body, moving around, functioning properly. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and discuss a little bit about what happened. What brought me to the ER originally and where I am right now. So, as I said before, originally what started this was that I was feeling very extended, very bloating. In the past, I've always experienced flares, but this type of experience was nothing like a flare that I've experienced before. Flares, I typically, the typical symptoms I usually get for flares are either like very dehydrated. My urine was so dark. Honestly, it almost looked like it was almost like brownish, almost dark, maybe like a dark green, almost black. It was very, very bad. I would get major headaches. I would almost get like cramps on my legs all the time, um, headaches all the time, dizziness, weakness, and then it would either consist of diarrhea or bloatingness, or rather constipation. Bloatingness being one of them too. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think of what else I usually experience when there are flares. But point is, I know when it's a flare and when isn't. This type of experience was a lot more different. Like I mentioned, I just felt very extended, very full, and I just wasn't able to use the restroom at all. I did try, laxatives. I did try natural juices. I tried different home remedies to see if anything would help for me to be able to use the restroom. But unfortunately, after 4 days, I just couldn't handle it no more. It was probably on the third day that I was having a hard time sleeping. The pain was so unbearable. And the thing with me is that I don't have a habit of going to the ER right away. I usually tend to wait. I'm like, no, let's give it a little bit more time. Let's give it another day. Let me try something else. And honestly, regardless of what I did, what I ate, what I drink, it just didn't make any difference. Um, but unfortunately, that's what brought me to the ER on the fourth day. I'm like, you know what? And I was talking to my wife at that time because she had to go to work, and she usually wakes up like around 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I can't bear the pain anymore. And the thing with me is, I don't drink any painkillers. I've always tried to avoid it. For that reason, painkillers doesn't really help, especially when I'm experiencing a flare. They might help maybe an hour or two, then honestly the pain just comes back again, and it felt like a sharp pain, like if someone just kind of stabbed me in a sense. I would know what that feels like too, but that's for a different story. But the pain was just so unbearable. It got to the point I wasn't able to sleep at all. I had to be laying down the majority of my day. I couldn't go to work. It was just getting extremely bad, and it was just getting to the point where I'm just like, okay, you know what, let's go to the hospital, or ER rather, I'm sorry. As I mentioned before in my last video, I do go to the UCI over there by the block, originally known as the Outlet now. That's where I go, that's where I get seen, that's where all my specialists are, unfortunately. I have more than one specialist. As I said before, I do have colon cancer type 2, so I'm also being seen by a different specialist there. And so it was a long wait. It was long hours. I go to the ER, I get checked up, I tell them what's going on. And honestly, and if for those who go to the ER, unfortunately, a little too often, like myself, you know that for a fact that it's always going to be different hours. Some people could go in almost immediately. Others would go in within 2 to 4 hours, or someone like me during that time, I wasn't being seen until almost 5.5 hours later. And up to that point, they've been giving me, they got in an IV, they gave me IV fluids, some potassium, because they do all that like tests. So typically they'll try to do all the tests out of the way first. That way, when there's a room available, they'll go ahead and take you in. So I got, all that blood work. I had that heart monitor thing because my heart was just going too rapidly. I had a fever going on. Honestly, I think all that was going on because of the pain. And, when I got to actually spoke, because you'll speak to multiple doctors, you'll have to explain yourself multiple times. Just make sure you tell them every single little detail, because sometimes I'll forget to tell something to the previous doctor, then the other doctor will repeat what I've said previously, but sometimes I'll add on to it because I forgot to mention something else. So always try to be descriptive. If you forget something, that's okay. You're always going to be seen by multiple doctors regardless, so just explain it then. But I remember during that time, my wife was always with me the entire time. So I was just telling her, I feel so uncomfortable. I don't feel great. I can't really sit down properly. The pain was just so unbearable. And, so they're giving me something for, some sort of morphine to make me feel more at ease, something that I could tolerate the pain. And, that same day, I did get a room, and then unfortunately, after speaking with the doctors, after getting a CT scan, some blood work, an X-ray to the chest, They still couldn't really figure out what exactly was going on. Um, they couldn't really see any radiation, but they did see some sort of bowel obstruction. And bear in mind, this is the first time I got to experience what a bowel obstruction is. I usually experience flares. Bowel obstructions are something a lot more different from what I've experienced personally. Um, so with that being said, when it comes to situations where you're not able to use the restroom at all, they'll cut you off completely. So no water, no food, no nothing. Up to this point, I'm really thirsty. Weirdly enough, I still felt, hungry. I was really, really hungry, but I knew that I couldn't eat, and that's just how they are. They don't want to put in anything in my stomach, knowing that I'm not using the restroom at all. So if anything, if it's not going to come from below, then unfortunately it's going to come up from above. So I will be vomiting in the future. So to prevent that, they wanted to put in something, if I'm correct, it should be called an NG tube. So it's a tube that basically goes up your nostrils, and it goes down your throat all the way down to your stomach to suck out everything that's in there already. Sorry, I got cut off there. So like I was saying, it's kind of like a vacuum, like a miniature vacuum thing. It just sucks out everything that's inside your stomach, and it tries to get rid of anything that's in there already. So I had that for a couple of days. I was told, already right there and there, and they're like, yeah, you know what, you're gonna stay overnight, and you might stay a couple more days. I'm like, okay, that's perfectly fine. Because I had it coming. I already knew. Usually when I end up in the ER, I'm gonna stay there a couple days, maybe weeks. I don't really know. It just depends what's going on. And well, unfortunately, so they did that. I ended up getting another IV in the other arm because I was given so much fluids. I was given more potassium, magnesium. Because when you're so dehydrated, and then prior to that, I haven't ate 4 days. It takes a huge toll on your body. You need the energy just to kind of be, moving around, being awake. I remember being so sleepy, always in pain. I would get pain medicine as soon as I was able to. And it just got to the point where even with that type of NG tube sucking out everything in my stomach, I was still feeling so bloated, so extended. Like I had that feeling of using the restroom, and I just couldn't. I wasn't able to. And I told him, like, is there something you could do for me? Give me anything that could give me a chance to use the restroom. But regardless of the methods, it just didn't work. So it got to the point where surgery had to be involved. They'll basically go down from beneath, try to open up the structure in the small intestine, or in this case, I had a J pouch during that time. Open up and let out some air, and possibly take out some fluids that way. Do an emergency surgery that way. That way I feel more relieved. And it was during that time, like probably already by that point, it was already 2 nights that I've been inside, and it was already on Friday. But unfortunately, the surgeon that was going to be seen wouldn't be coming in until Monday, so I had to pull through until Monday. But it got to the point where even with the NG tube being inside, even with all that pain medication, I felt worse. My stomach felt more extended. I honestly felt like I was gonna blow up like a balloon. Like I was gonna be ready to pop at any given moment. It was just so horrible. I just don't know why I felt that way, or what was going on. I was freaking out because I had no idea what was going on with me either way. But we'll have to see. Sorry, I keep getting cutting off. But like I was saying, it was just unbearable. Eventually, I had to have a different surgeon come in and do an emergency surgery on me on Sunday afternoon. The surgery was a success. I did feel a lot more, better. I felt more relieved. It wasn't feeling like I was going to pop. Eventually, they come with a different set of news that I was really unprepared to hear. They were just telling me, what, this is a temporary solution. To be honest with you, there's only two options. First one being that we could go ahead and let it sit, let it see if you would recover better over time. And they gave me their honest opinion, because I always tell them, don't don't make it sound bad. Just give it to me straightforward. Hey, this is what's going on. This is what I suggest, or this is what I recommend. And I tell them, like, don't make it sound bad. Just tell me what's going on, And they're like, well, to be honest with you, I don't see this getting any better. If anything, you're gonna get worse. And it's just a matter of when you're gonna be coming back. It could be a matter of another week, maybe a month, could be less. Option 2 is to go ahead and once again get a ileostomy. Get my, for them it was like a whole solution. No more pain, no more medications, no more feeling bloatiness, no more problems. In other words, like all my quote unquote all my problems would just go away with it. And I've had it in the past, and honestly at the time I wasn't thinking well. I had a lot of things being thrown at me. I was in so much pain still. I said no originally. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna let it sit. I'm just gonna let time pass by and see what's going on. If I need the surgery then I'll do it. But originally I said no. So another day passes by. Up to this point, it's been 3 days in the ER. My wife comes and visits me, and I had to talk with her, and I remember being pretty upset because the first time around I tried so hard to get rid of it. And now they're telling me that this is my only solution, unfortunately. And I had to go through it. And that was perfectly fine for me. I had no problem with that. But the only issue with that is that I didn't want it no more. Like I mentioned before, I tried so hard to get rid of it just so it could be back with me again. And after some, serious talk with my wife, after a second opinion and more consideration, I'm like, okay, you know what, let's do it. And that's, that was my... Sorry, I was getting cut off once again, but so initially that was my answer. I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and proceed with the surgery. And I did have to break the news with family members, friends of mine, because everyone saw me at one point with the ileostomy. They already knew that I've had it in the past. And considering that I would have to get another surgery for this, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? That's fine for medical purposes. If it's gonna make me feel any better, no more suffering, no more pain, no more medications, and all right, by all for it. Let's proceed. Let's get it out of the way. Everything was scheduled for Saturday night, or rather Saturday afternoon. Everything was done. It took about 4 hours. It took a little longer. I can't remember why at the time. It just took a little longer, and this is my first time that my wife got to experience for herself something like this. Here and there everyone goes to the doctor, maybe a physical checkup, maybe someone gets sick, but surgery wise, God forbid that happens often for anyone. But for me, it was always an here and there. It was a little too often for someone such as myself. And I remember waking up, I was feeling extremely tired. I'm still hungry, very thirsty, a lot in pain. Family members came and visit. My wife was with me the entire time. And from there, pretty much from that day, it was just a matter of recovering. For the up to that point, it was already the 4th day. And it took another 4 days still in the ER to pretty much recover, gain my energy back. I was being seen by physical therapy, trying to move around, try to eat. Slowly started with liquids, and then eventually something soft, and then eventually it's something a little bit more solidified. And thankful for that. I was able to recover a lot more quicker than expected. They always say that, because you're young, you'll recover a lot more faster. I'm sure there's some truth into that, but in the end, it just really depends on who you are. If you put in the work, give it all your best, move around when they tell you to, eat when possible, and drink plenty of fluids, because in the beginning, for your system to be awake, you gotta eat, you gotta drink stuff. lots of fluids, especially in the beginning. You know, you don't want to be coming back in the ER again for dehydration, or you know, having too much output coming out. Those are all no bueno, no good at all whatsoever. And then I already had a habit already drinking plenty of fluids, plenty of water. I had to cut down a little bit on the coffee for the time being. I love coffee. It's something I drink at almost, no, scratch that, every single day, at least one, like little 5 or 6 ounce cups, you know, 1 or 2 cups per day. Not too much. I'm not a big fan of like too much sugary or like heavy cream. Just a simple black straight coffee. Here and there I'll probably put like a little 1 or 2 packs of those little small sugar stuff. Usually my work company provides for things like that, so that's the only reason why I get a good amount of coffee at least every day, for that reason. But now that I'm back home, you know, it's just a matter of still kind of moving around, building up my endurance, building up my strength again, and just being careful with what I eat. More than anything, you know, make sure you're always chewing your food, you know, all the way as much as you can. And you know, just continue drinking plenty of liquids. You know, for the time being, I'm drinking a whole bunch of waters, things like apple juice, orange juice, and you know, not too long ago, you know, I'll do a whole separate video based on, you know, my diet, what I'm drinking, what's recommended, what I'm drinking personally, and what I'm eating currently. And probably gonna stick to this diet for another until the end of this month, and then probably increase my diet to something more solidified. You know, us Mexicans, we do eat a lot of red meats, we do eat different types of meats. For the time being, I'm just avoiding any type of red meats. I'm eating more like chicken, a little bit more like baked fish, a good amount of fiber, not too much, just a good amount, just to have the output a lot more thicker, because usually in the morning it's usually a lot more liquidy. So you know, I'll have a whole different video explaining kind of what my routine looks like, what my diet consists of, and something that I would recommend, you know, sticking back to the basics. You know, this is good for anyone that I mentioned before that has an ostomy bag. You know, I have an ileostomy, but it should definitely work for anyone who has an ostomy bag. But yeah, so that's a little bit about my life, a little bit what I experienced through the ER. I'll go ahead and upload a couple photos here and there of, you know, what I had during that time, what I currently have, and basically the incisions that I have here around my abdominal, my stomach, and you know, we'll go from there. So have a good one, guys. Talk to you all later.